This is Anthony Pryor. You're watching Class Act Sports.
This is Victor Green, Class Act Sports. We're live in Dallas, Texas, Super Bowl 45. I'm joined today by my former teammate, Anthony Pryor. Thanks, sir, for joining us today, man. How are you?
Pretty good, man. Thanks for having me.
Good. You know, the normal perception of athletes is to go out and play, perform on the football field. But you actually have written and self-published 5 books. How did you get into writing books?
You know, when I was in college, I studied philosophy and history, and I was so fascinated with the slave trade and how long it lasted, considering being such a strong Christian nation. And I took the initiative on myself, said, you know what? After playing professional football for 11 years, I decided to write a book intertwining slavery and modern day football. You know, and a lot of times I got a lot of flack, some controversy, things of that nature. But when people really read the book, they're going to get a sense of their history. And my whole motivation for writing the book is have people get a chance to look at sports through a whole new lens. You know, and a lot of young kids that pursue sports, it's oftentimes fundamentally imposed at a young age that without athletics, I'm going to amount to nothing. And so basically I wanted to give young kids and parents that are pushing their kid towards sports just a whole nother dimension of looking at sports.
Right. Well, one of the ones that stuck out to me was Slave Side of Sunday. Elaborate on that for me a little bit, will you?
Well, you know what? A lot of times in the media, sometimes I hear announcers saying, you know, sports saves this black kid from the ghetto and things of that nature. And my whole thing was, if sports saves, it shouldn't be a black ghetto in America. You know, a lot of times sports in the black community, it's fundamentally imposed at a young age that without sports, you're going to amount to nothing. And a lot of times parents push their kids through sports to get out of the ghetto, and a lot of times they become enslaved into sports. Right. And that's what the book, trying to break that mold and try to, you know, break that those fundamentals.
Any plans in the works now of more books, or are you just kind of standing pat with the 5 you have?
You know what, I'm working on a book called Seeing the End. It's based on my life and running 40 yards based on my speed camps and what speed has meant to me throughout my whole 11-year career. And it's very powerful, very spiritual book, and I think a lot of the readers get a whole lot out of it.
Yeah, speaking of speed, you run a speed camp here in Dallas called Ocean Speed Camp, where you go out and you train, you know, from the age of 5 years old.
Absolutely.
You know, saw your video to, you know, college kids. You know, talk about that and how do you really improve kids and their speed?
Well, actually, when I first started running in high school, I remember I was 16 years old and I was running junior varsity. I didn't want my parents to come to the track meets because I was taking like 5th and 6th place. And our track coach brought in Don Corey, an Olympic sprinter from the 70s and early 80s, did us a speed camp, totally changed my life. And because before then, I have pictures of myself in last place, flat-footed, straight arms, and stiff all over. And so a lot of the athletes that I train that are flat-footed, stiff, I have a really unique way of getting them to relax and making them faster. It's just getting the body mechanics right.
Wow, that's, you know, you talk about, well, first of all, Anthony at Washington State University, where he attended school, was pound for pound the strongest, the fastest athlete, and it still holds the record today at a 4.21.40. Unbelievable. Pound for pound, what exactly does that mean? Because a lot of people have came and gone from Washington State, but you still hold that record. I mean, what is that?
You know what, I just credit that to a disciplined nature and just wanted to outwork everybody. There's no substitute for hard work. And a lot of the athletes that I coach, that's the main thing I train them. I said, you know what, those 15, 20 minutes after practice can make the biggest difference. And that made the biggest difference for me. You know, Coach Jay Omer, who's now the strength and conditioning coach for Brigham Young University, he had a great lifting program, and I credit a lot to him.
Well, what are your recipe to get these kids faster? Because speed is ultimately, I think, what all kids strive for. What is your recipe when you is in each kid, you treat them differently, or are they the same? I mean, what are your recipe?
When I do camps, you basically teach the basic fundamentals of speed training. You know, your arms, your legs, your knee lift, vision, things of that nature. When I get a chance on an individual basis, I can totally re-engineer the kid, because parents always ask me, Anthony, where's your stopwatch? basically I'm the stopwatch. I don't own a stopwatch.
Wow.
Basically, when I train the kid, I gauge their speed with my world-class speed, because as a master sprinter, I'm still sprinting. I'm still in, competition, every other weekend, doing the Masters indoor right now. And so when kids come train with me, I don't need a stopwatch. You're going to run with me, and I'll let you know just how fast you truly are when you run next to me.
Wow. Well, Anthony played 11 years, 6 in the NFL and 5 in Canadian League. How was that transition going over and playing in Canada? I mean, what was the difference, being at the cream of the crops to go play,
You know
in
what?
Canadian
Actually, it was a great experience. I did want to keep playing in the NFL. Man, I love playing in the NFL because that's the hallmark of professional football.
Absolutely.
The greatest players in the world play in the NFL. And I remember I was a free agent. I went down to UCLA on the grass. I ran a 4.28 back-to-back, did some training. And, a lot of scouts were like, well, you're going into, your 8th year, and, we can get rookies, and, your minimum is this much. But I still had the desire and love to play football. So I went up north to Canada, played 5 more years, won a Grey Cup championship, wrote some books, and got a chance to reconnect to the love of the game, because when you go play in Canada, you're not playing for no money.
Right. What is the biggest difference you saw from playing in the NFL and playing over in the Canadian League?
Well, as far as the bigger guys, I noticed the bigger guys were not as big and as fast as the players in the NFL. But the skilled positions, your running backs, your receivers, your linebackers, and your safeties, equivalent to the NFL. I mean, the NFL, you have a lot of great players, but you don't have a lot of positions. You got more supply, but the demand is pretty low.
In 2001, you won, I see your ring there, the Grey Cup.
Yes.
Is that any, we're down here at the Super Bowl 45. How would you compare the Grey Cup to the Super Bowl, with the leading up to the hype, to the Super Bowl, to that game?
It's hype, but nothing like the NFL. I mean, you got, 300 million Americans, and you only got, 9 million, Canadians. And so I guess the CFL, their Super Bowl is more equivalent to, a college championship,
Right.
But the NFL is just the granddaddy of them all. Everybody wants to come here. Even in Canada, you got players that are playing in the Canadian League that walk around with jerseys of current NFL players,
Right.
just to show you just how the caliber of players.
Right. Speaking, I mentioned that we're in Dallas for Super Bowl 45. Green Bay Packers, Pittsburgh Steelers. Do you have a favorite?
Well, growing up in high school, I've always been a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, so I'm going for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I would like to see the Steelers get 7 Super Bowl champions and championship rings. I think that'll be an honor.
Well, you got to go through Don Capers and that Green Bay Packer defense. You got Dick LeBeau,
Yes.
Troy Polamalu in that defense there.
Yes.
You got the 2 quarterbacks. Touch on the 2 quarterbacks, Big Ben and Aaron Rodgers there. Do you see?
I'm a big fan of Aaron Rodgers. I'm a really big fan. I would love to see him get a championship ring too, and that way Brett Favre can get a chance to rest, and we can, he can retire and go home and go fishing. And I'm looking forward to seeing Ben Roethlisberger too. I think he can read defense as well. I think he's a team leader. I know he got in a little trouble during the offseason, but the team has really bounced back and they look real strong. And Coach Tomlinson is a great coach. He's a great motivator. He reminds me of Pete Carroll. And the players really get up for the game playing for him.
Right. You mentioned Big Ben. He was suspended 4 games this year, beginning of the season. My question is, who has the most pressure? Aaron Rodgers to win his first Super Bowl, or Big Ben to kind of get the monkey off his back, if you will? He won 2 Super Bowls. Do you think he needs to win his 3rd Super Bowl to kind of wash out that 4-game suspension?
I think both quarterbacks have a lot of pressure on them. I think it's kind of even-steven, considering Aaron Rodgers, and you got the legacy of Brett Favre. You got Big Ben with 2 Super Bowl rings, chasing Tom Brady for a 3rd. And so I think both quarterbacks have an equal amount of pressure, and I believe it's going to be defense that's going to take this game.
Defense, you talked about your books and the slavery of the league. What do you think the league's at right now from when we played, and have the game changed to you in the way it's played?
I believe I believe today it's more business, I believe, meaning a lot of players will not play hurt. A lot of players will not lay it on the line. You know, like the players we play with, like Ronnie Lott and Boomer Esiason, I think them players in that era, you know, they played more for the love of the game. I think a lot of players today are playing to get a reality show, you know, and that's the biggest difference that I've seen.
Right. The lockout is right around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
You know, March 4th, CBA. Do you think that would be a lockout in this game? Do you think the owners and the players will be greedy enough to not be able to get a deal done?
I believe they'll have an agreement. I believe there's too much at stake. There's too many, it'll be a lot of collateral damage, you know, if there was a lockout. So I'm believing that the players and owners will come to an agreement, and I think everything will be resolved. If not, I'd like to make a comeback.
Well, I think one of the biggest thing right now is the holdup. I think is the 18-game season, regular season.
Okay.
You know, you played the game. Mm-hmm. Do you think 2 more games would be a big issue in the way players play, or you think it'd be more injuries with the 18 games?
If there's going to be 2 more games, you know what? Maybe the salary cap needs to go up, and I think that would level the playing field right there. If players are going to be able to, generate more capital playing 2 extra games, then I think it should be no problem.
But what about the injuries? Players continue to put themselves in harm's way, if you will, playing that 2 extra games.
Well, then you got to look at also the preseason games. If you take the preseason games, have them only play 2 preseason games, and add 2 regular season games, I think you pretty balance it out.
Right.
You know?
What don't the fans know about Anthony Pryor?
Hey, I'm a likable guy.
You're a likable guy. Anything you would like the fans to say to the fans? You know, you got your speed camp. Mm-hmm. How would somebody be able to come in and have you as a coach to sign up for that? Where would they go to get that information?
You would go to oceanspeedcamp.com. People ask me, Anthony, why do you call it Ocean Speed? Well, sound travels in water 4 times faster than it does in the air, and it's my job at Ocean Speed Camp to improve your 40 speed in 4 different phases: in your start, your acceleration, your duration, and your finish.
You heard it from Anthony Pryor. I'm Victor Green. You're watching Class Act Sports.